That ain't right. Won't fight. Go ahead, James. Check the change. Now you're ready for the big payback. My name is Tyrone Squires. I am Managing Director of Transparent RX. I hope you appreciated my walk-up music. It is pertinent to our conversation today. Of course, PBMs for far too long have been leveraging the purchasing power of unsophisticated plan sponsors to their financial advantage. We are going to get on the path to reversing that strategy here today. And so let me get back to my screen here. Let me get back. I can't get away from James today, it seems like. So let me get back to my screen here today. And so let me just real quick, just tell you a little bit about myself. I started in this industry almost 2 decades ago as a pharmaceutical sales rep. And here's why I'm sharing this with you is because I want you to be able to trust the source of the information. This is not about self-promotion. This is about trust. I started in this bit, and I'm catching my breath because I was getting my groove on over here to a little bit of James Brown, but I started in this business almost 2 decades ago in 2002 as a pharmaceutical sales rep with Eli Lilly. I eventually worked my way into the corporate offices where I was a part of a team and eventually led a team that was charged with getting access, negotiating with pharmacy benefit managers to get our products onto the PBMs formulary. I caught the entrepreneurial bug. This is around the end of 2005, 2006. I went out on my own and started a mail order pharmacy, licensed in all 50 states, and then cashed out of that business right around 2010, right when specialty drugs were starting to take off. At that time, if you owned a pharmacy and you needed a specialty drug, you could get it. There was no such thing as limited distribution at that time. Specialty drug makers couldn't give away their products fast enough. Now that distribution system is a little bit more complicated and safely guarded. And so became a little bit frustrated between what I believe and what many independent pharmacy owners believe today, that the reimbursements coming back from PBMs back to pharmacies was too low. And then also sitting at the table with generic drug manufacturers and wholesalers, negotiating costs for goods, just felt like, a little bit of strong arming. So decided, you know what? If you can't beat them, join them. Cashed out of the mail order pharmacy and started today what I believe to be the first fiduciary, not only the first, but the first and only PBM which offers comprehensive fiduciary language within its contract. So I've got nothing to hide. It is in my best interest that you are sophisticated. It allows us to compete with those PBMs who provide great optics, but less transparency on the back end. So, but today is not about us. It's not about Transparent RX. It's about you and about education. Here's the agenda for today. I've talked a little bit about myself already. So I won't get into any more of that. If you have any questions for me, there's a couple ways to get those questions to me. You can send them via the chat interface there, or you can raise your hand, and then I will give you the floor, unmute you, and then you can pose that question to the entire group here today. So 3 things I want to have happen by the time we conclude this webinar, so that it is not a waste of your time and not a waste of my time. I want you to know how PBMs make money. I want you to feel something other than indifference about what you learned today. And then finally, I want you to take some action, right? Without action, it's just talk. Whenever I ask the question to an employer group or a union or a health system, what's your most pressing problem around pharmacy benefits? Inevitably, 9 times out of 10 is going to come back around price, either directly or indirectly. Our solution to getting a better price is a little bit different take than what you will most often hear. Our solution is to eliminate information asymmetry, or it's also called information failure. Information asymmetry is an economic term which just says, or phrase which just says that when one party or entity has access to information that another party or person doesn't have access to, the party with the better information or the more knowledge to interpret that information is going to use it to its advantage. It's going to use it as leverage to further their cause. Because of information asymmetry, pharmacy benefit managers make it tough to determine what they're being paid for the service they were hired to perform. We're going to talk a little bit more about that here a little bit later. But what you're looking at right now is an example of information success. Believe it or not, at least half, if not more, than all self-funded employers, when they receive a rebate payment from their PBM, they don't receive a receipt for those payments. They receive a bucket of dollars that they're happy to get on time according to the contract and little to nothing else. Well, this is what they should be receiving: a detailed report generated by the manufacturer that is sent to the rebate aggregator that outlines what claims were paid and what amounts were paid for each of those eligible claims, down to the NDC claim level detail. On its surface, this doesn't look very powerful, but let me tell you, once you start getting this information, it can be a complete game changer. It takes leverage from the PBM and moves it to the purchaser of their services. Now, let me just real quick say, information like plan ID, RX number, the unique pharmacy identifier, NABP, NPI, a national provider identification, and National Association of Boards of Pharmacy numbers. That information is populated in our reports. We've just de-identified it or removed it here today for privacy reasons. Okay, so I want to be clear about that. So this leads me to the status quo. Plan sponsors, when you enter into an agreement with a pharmacy benefit manager that calls for an artificially too low administrative fee, and by artificially too low, I'm suggesting anything below $6 per claim. You can factor out that per claim fee to a PEPM or PMPM. At the end of the day, it's all going to factor out to be the same or really, really close. No statistical significant difference. But when you enter into an agreement with a PBM that calls for an artificially too low admin fee, that essentially gives the non-fiduciary PBM a blank check to begin augmenting that artificially too low admin fee using hidden cash flow tactics throughout the course of uh, throughout the term of the contract. Think about it. If there's no charge for the admin fee, there's no charge for the dispensing fee, or they're artificially low, 50 cents, a buck 50, whatever it is for the admin fee, uh, you know, 25 cents, 50 for the dispensing fees. When it's artificial, how else is a PBM going to make money? No PBM can make payroll, pay mortgages, pay benefits to their employees at a buck 50 per claim. This is a second source of that same information that I just shared with you. And so what you will notice here is that, and so I remember this is like it was, I remember this like it was yesterday. In the early 2000s, it was small molecule brand drugs and the rebates that the PBMs were generating the bulk of their gross profit. And when that happens, then their clients are up in arms about not being able to receive the full benefit of those revenue streams. And so when third-party payers got wise to, can I just be I guess a little bit cool? When third-party payers got hip to the brand drug rebates, they closed that off. And then the PBMs shifted that. Remember the mandatory mail? PBM shifted maintenance medications to mandatory mail. Then legislation had to come out to prevent that, and independent pharmacies, you can't do that. And then we got 90-day at retail. That's what started 90-day at retail, the mandatory mail. And so when that got closed off, then the PBMs shifted that lost revenue to big molecule brand drugs or biologics or specialty drugs. And so now the shift is already on, and it has been on now for 6 or 7 years. The shift now is in what we call MBDCs, or medical benefit drug claims. Now plan sponsors are cutting this off, and now it's branching out here to medical benefit drug claims. The drug claim, the drugs that are dispensed under the medical benefit, where there's little to no oversight. The PBMs have shifted, have taken their tools that we've perfected. I shouldn't say they, I should say we, good, bad, or indifferent. I'm in the same boat, right? Have taken those tools that we've perfected on the pharmacy side as a PBM and moved them over to the medical side. I'm talking about formulary management, dose optimization, quantity limits, prior authorizations, step therapy. It's all been moved over or added to the medical side. So the new path says this: PBMs should be either forced or pushed towards making money just one way, and that is through the admin fee. The trade-off now is that the PBM, for a higher admin fee that is no longer artificially too low, it's realistic now, and it starts now at $6 per claim and goes up from there. The trade-off now is that the PBM must contractually forego generating hidden cash flows to itself. Now, everyone knows that the PBM makes money on rebates, uh, mail order markup, retail markup. Everyone knows that. But what everyone doesn't know is, what do those dollars amount to? That's the most important question. I'm often asked, Tyrone, what's the difference between a fiduciary PBM and any other PBM that isn't fiduciary? What's the difference between a fiduciary PBM and a pass-through or transparent PBM? Here's what I'm going to tell you about that. The difference between the two is this. With the fiduciary PBM, let me back up. Quick story. It's in the news. Tesla. Stock price has skyrocketed. The primary reason that Tesla is the most profitable, and if I'm not mistaken, either number one or number two largest car company in the world in such a short time, is because it has upended the traditional business model for automobiles. Automobiles with a gas or diesel powertrain, right? They are fueled by gasoline or diesel. Once those cars are driven off the lot, the value of those cars drops precipitously as soon as you drive it off the lot. Those car makers utilize repairs to those cars as a profit center for their dealers and independent auto repair shops. Well, Tesla, once the car is sold, like your mobile phone, it sends updates to the entire automobile, software updates to improve the performance of the automobile for free. So for Tesla, the value creation begins after the car is sold. For General Motors and all, it doesn't matter, Lexus, Toyota, Mercedes-Benz. Once the car is sold, value eradication begins. It is the same principle with fiduciary PBMs and any other PBM. Don't care what you consider the business model, is that with a fiduciary PBM, value creation begins once the plan goes live. For any other PBM that isn't contractually obligated to put its clients first, that isn't contractually obligated to contain its clients' cost, as soon as the plan goes live, it is trying to eat away at the proposal that it submitted to you prior to your selection of that PBM. That is the big difference between the fiduciary and non-fiduciary PBM business models. Pharmacy benefit managers contract with pharmacies in order to have sites from which prescriptions can be dispensed to the PBM's plan participants. The PBM, and I'm talking about the contractual relationship, the PBM will then obviously has to have clients who provide those services too. Those clients are third-party payers, health plans, health systems, unions, commercial plan sponsors, public plan sponsors. The list is pretty exhaustive. The list is pretty exhaustive. Pharmacy benefit managers then reimburse those pharmacies for the prescriptions that they dispense, and then they will bill those third-party payers, those health plans, those health systems, public companies, private companies. The problem here is twofold. First, the inflow of cash back to the third party payer in the form of rebates is too low. I just showed you how PBMs generate the bulk of their profit. It is from those manufacturer dollars. I'm not one of those people who believes rebates are bad. It's like people who say money's evil. No, it ain't. Money doesn't have a brain, doesn't have emotions. It's the people who have the money who use it in bad ways that are evil, not the money. Rebates aren't evil. It's the action of those who have control over the rebates who can be the bad actors. The intent of rebates is to lower price. The intent of rebates is to get to the lowest net cost as possible. So that's the first problem with this system as it pertains to you or your clients, is rebates getting back to you are way too low. The second problem is ingredient costs. They're too high. The primary reason is spread pricing. Trust me when I tell you this. Half of you are going to say, my client doesn't pay spreads, or we don't pay spreads. Half of you will acknowledge that you probably do. The other half will say that you don't. The other half that says that you don't pay spreads, I'm going to tell you that 90% of you are. In the pharmacy biz, we refer to AWP as ain't what's paid. Kind of funny, play on words, right? Generic drugs typically have, not typically, have two primary prices. Those aren't the only ones, but two primary prices used in calculating what you pay for a specific drug or a group of drugs. MAC is more related to the actual acquisition cost of the drug, or in other words, what a pharmacy pays a wholesaler, or what a retail pharmacy pays a wholesaler to put the product on the shelf. MAC is more closely related to that cost than is AWP, but they both can still be higher than the actual acquisition cost. I talked about information asymmetry and eliminating information asymmetry and working towards and winning information success. Information success, where drug costs are concerned, ingredient costs, that is knowing what the PBM is paying for them. If you don't know that, then you must assume that there are spreads taking place. I'm going to show you a perfect example here in a second of an entity much larger than anyone else's who's on this call today was paying huge spreads. And so two pricing benchmarks, the primary one for generic drugs, AWP and MAC. This is how they work. AWP here is one benchmark, and there's going to be a discount associated with that off of AWP to determine your cost or your client's cost. And then you have MAC. More on that here in a second. Take a look here at levothyroxine, 561 AWP. Let's look here. Let's say you negotiate. I'm going to keep it simple at 560. Let's say your contract calls for a generic effective rate of 85%. That's going to be the discount off of 560, and your bill is going to resemble that discount that you've negotiated. So let's say 85% leaves a discount of 475. This leaves a cost to you of $85. Information success will provide you with the ability to see what that product cost the pharmacy. $4. Now, by the way, this is something I post on my blog every week. We move in and out the drugs on a weekly basis, not all of them, but over time, 2 or 3 weeks, all are replaced. We got fresh drugs here with the AWP and then the invoice cost, right? So 85 bucks to you, the drug costs $4 to put on the shelf. The PBM pays a pharmacy 100% markup, which is generous, which is extremely generous. Pharmacies would love to get a 50% markup, let alone 100% markup on generic drugs for every drug they dispense. Sometimes they take L's. Sometimes they take losses on drugs, right? So let's just assume out of pocket for the PBM, let's call it 10 bucks. That leaves a $75 difference. That is how spreads manifest. Just that quick. You assume that because your bill is 85, that the pharmacies must be close to that. Now, let's say that the product is on the PBM's MAC list. All right, let's say that the product is on the PBM's MAC list. Let's say that the MAC price is $15. The PBM still is out of pocket only 10. Now it's a $5 spread. What you will have happen is the PBM, through pure volume, if it is not fiduciary or radically transparent in its business model, will generate profits based upon volume. Hundreds of thousands, in some cases millions of claims where there might be a $2, $3, $4, or $5 spread. It adds up. $75 is more rare than it is common, but it only takes a handful of those drugs on a daily basis where the spreads are, 50, 75, 100, even 200 bucks, to where the PBM is essentially just printing money. Mail order, again, you have to be careful. It's supposed to be a lower cost in retail, but it depends on what you negotiate. If you close off retail for hidden cash flow to the PBM, but you leave open mail order, what's going to happen? The PBM is going to shift that lost revenue. It's going to shift your cost to the mail. In this example here, through mail, the product was $38. Through the community pharmacy, if it was just a cash paying patient, uninsured, it's only $8 out of pocket. It costs more through the insured person's mail order pharmacy than it would someone who's uninsured paying cash. And here's the background information on that study. Contract language. There's nothing more important when negotiating with a PBM than the contract language. If contract language is 1A, benefit design is 1B, my friends. Don't tiptoe around it. Don't submit RFPs with 100 questions about pricing and discounts and MAC lists and about benefit design, the formulary. Get copies of the contract. Signature ready. Get copies of the benefit design. Signature ready. And use that for your evaluation of the PBM. The questionnaire, you want to include it, but the weight, and so now you have the contract, now you have the benefit design, now all the weight, most of the weight is placed on those two pieces, and now the questionnaire isn't used, or the Excel spreadsheet, right? You score the contract, you score the benefit design, you weight them, Now you've got the claims repricing. You've got the questionnaire. Now, based upon your scoring of the contract and the benefit design and the questionnaire and the claims repricing, you get closer to radical transparency. MAC list, again, for the most part, the contract language is going to be misleading, right? It will mislead you to believe that there's only one MAC list. There are multiple MAC lists. Transparent RX has just one. We have just one. Our pharmacies have one. The mail order pharmacy uses the same exact one. If a PBM has multiple MAC lists, it is going to ensure that the plan sponsor's MAC list is less comprehensive and more aggressive, meaning the prices are going to be higher and there's going to be less drugs on the MAC list. We saw the two pricing benchmarks. MAC is more closely related to the actual acquisition cost than its AWP. So if your MAC list is less comprehensive, then the cost of those drugs that aren't on the MAC list is going to be based upon AWP. I showed you an example of what that could lead to. 75 here and 5 here. That's exactly how it works. I'm not talking about every single claim. But that is the thought process. That is the strategy. All right. Rebates by many names. Again, the contract language will lead the reasonable person to believe that you're getting 90 or 95% of the rebate, when in fact, it can be much, much less than that. There are different names and types of rebates. Real quick, I believe this is a part of the course, the handout that we sent to everyone, right? This was a lawsuit filed by Express Scripts against Kaleo. Admin fee, this is not the same admin fee that I was talking about up front on a per claim basis or PEPM or PMPM basis. This has nothing to do with that. This is a manufacturer administrative fee, or in other words, a rebate. What happens more times than not is that the contracts are negotiated around these, but these are left to the PBM. You can see example here, price protection rebate dwarfs the formulary rebate. Administrative fees dwarf the formulary rebates. There's other names as well. As I mentioned, access. You'll also see them referred to as purchase discounts. Get out of here. Who's doing the purchasing? Listen, if a PBM gives you a contract and says you're entitled to price protection rebates, formulary rebates, market share rebates, but we're going to keep purchase discounts, they're shifting their costs to that area. They're shifting their revenue, your costs, their revenue to that area. I'm not married and I don't have any kids, but I've got some nieces and some nephews. If I give one of them $5 to go to the ice cream truck, do those even exist? Just hypothetical. To go to the ice cream truck and say, get yourself a snow cone, get me, a drumstick, whatever it is. And then bring my change back. I'm the purchaser, even though I sent them to buy the drumstick and the snow cone. Give me my change back. You are sending the PBM to negotiate with manufacturers. Get your change back. The fee that you are paying them for completing that action is the admin fee. If you decide to pay them a part of the rebate, at least know what they're keeping. More on that here in a second. Outcomes rebates. Again, these have been paid now for 10 years. They're hardly even being addressed, especially by commercial plan sponsors. But these deals are out there and they've existed for 10 years. I talked about that big plan sponsor that didn't realize that they were paying spreads and certainly didn't realize the dollars involved in that spread pricing. The state of Ohio a couple years ago sued these two PBMs. Well, and on the heels of that complaint, they terminated the contracts because they had discovered in 1 year almost $250 million in spreads that they were keeping. Now, if Greg Moody is being honest, and it's tough to get folks to admit that they missed something in 2020. If Greg is being honest, here he says, what we're saying is this is information we've never had before. If I'm talking to Greg face to face, what I'm saying to you is, Greg, is that it is information you never demanded before. It was always there. It was always there. It is information that you never demanded before. It wasn't until they decided that they wanted to know what the PBM was making, what they were paying the PBM, what the PBM was keeping in their bank account at the end of the year, that they learned that information. I'm wrapping up here. The most important two slides are coming up. In 2018, the CEO, not the CFO, not the president, not the senior vice president, not the controller, the CEO said this. Let me tell you what this means in layman's terms. And here's one thing before I get to that. Whenever the conversation around prescription drug pricing comes up between a PBM and their clients, at some point, the word contract is going to come up. And for some reason, it's glossed over. In the procurement process, the contract is often the last thing to be addressed, as if questions in an RFP are going to tackle what's important in the contract. It's almost as if you ask questions. Do you do this in your contract? Will you not do this in your contract? And for some reason, consultants and brokers and plan sponsors believe that when the PBM hands them their contract, they've considered all their answers in the RFP. No, they're going to give you a template that is in their favor, and if you sign it, give them a blank check. Just give them a blank check. The word contract always comes up Yet it's the one, it's the less time is spent on that, where transparency and pricing and benefit design are concerned. Less time is spent on that than the business associate agreement language. I'm going to let you ponder why that is. But the CEO of CVS, in layman's terms, let me tell you what he is saying. We are going to make as much money as we possibly can. The amount of money that we are going to make is ultimately going to depend on how sophisticated or unsophisticated our clients might be. The more sophisticated clients are going to eliminate the most levers. The unsophisticated clients are going to leave all or most of those levers available to be pulled. And those preferences, again, go back to education. At the end of the day, the number one metric in determining whose PBM is the best fit for you is going to be, what is the PBM making? Earnings after cash disbursements is our fancy way of saying the PBM's management fee. Think about this for a second, and I'm wrapping up here. Stay with me. When PBMs go and negotiate with pharmacy networks with contracts for contracts and manufacturers or rebate aggregators for contracts, those contracts typically last 3 to 5 years, and then we go at it again. Once those contracts are done, they're done. It doesn't matter that a plan sponsor is up for renewal and wants a better deal. If you win a better deal, the PBM isn't going back to the manufacturer and saying, hey, ABC company, they're going to drop us if you don't give us. No. What they are giving back to you is what they've already negotiated in the first place. So I say that to say, when you're negotiating with a PBM for rebates and ingredient costs, and real quick, I didn't address this. Or I did. Pricing, benefit design, right, are the primary cost drivers, pharmacy cost drivers. Pricing is addressed in the contract, right? And benefit design tackles utilization, product mix. Utilization, product mix. That's determined in the benefit design, folks. So even if you improve your pricing, the PBM, what it lost in giving you better pricing, can make up for with a poor benefit design, regaining that lost revenue. So just think about that for a second. What you're really negotiating for with a PBM is what you're going to allow it to keep. Everything in green at some point lands in the PBM's bank account. In red are cash disbursements, a reimbursement to a pharmacy for dispensing a prescription to one of your plan participants. A share of rebate dollars. PBM passes some back to you, keeps a part of it for itself. Whatever is left over is its management fee. You might be surprised to know that there are many cases where the management fee is higher than what the freaking drugs cost. That number is hidden here, folks. The final cost that you or your clients pay incorporates the PBM's management fee. It's hidden. It's hidden right there. We've got to start pulling that number out. In order to do that, here are some pillars to better PBM performance. I'm going to let you come back to this is information symmetry, not asymmetry, right? So it is the opposite. Information symmetry is the same as information success. The number one way, without question, to get to lowest net cost is to be a better, more sophisticated, more educated steward around the pharmacy benefit. You can't tiptoe around it. Uh, PBM smell blood in the water. You can talk that like you're an expert. You can talk about spreads and where are my rebates and all this. But if they sense blood in the water, that they believe you've just read an article and you don't really know what you're talking about, they'll get you. They'll get you. Doesn't matter if you're an MBA from Wharton, if you're a JD from Harvard, if you don't have a trained eye in this business, you will end up putting all your time in the BAA agreement and less time or little to no time in pricing transparency, contract language, and benefit design. I'm not suggesting that BAA language isn't important. Of course it is. And PBMs will willingly make concessions in the BAA. I'm wrapping up here. We've got the first and only credential that is both backed by a major university with a sole focus on pharmacy benefits and the PBM industry. Go out to Google, type in CPBS. It should be one of the first two listings with that acronym. Learn a little bit more about the program, whether you want to break into the industry and work for a PBM. Maybe you want to work for a company that does business with a PBM. Maybe you want to break into managed care. Maybe you want to do better for your own company in terms of getting to actual net cost, more transparency. That means less cost to you, less cost to the members, better outcomes for the members. Maybe your clients need you to have more knowledge if you're a consultant or a broker. Either way, there's not a better program in the world. Listen, that's my time for today. I'm going to stick around for a few minutes just in case any questions come through. Listen, everyone be safe out there. I appreciate your time. I hope you just learned one thing new today. Thank you.